and see a crowd of people who are not shy to say that they support Israel. In today's modern world, an act like this is not taken for granted. And I think every single one of you here need to regard yourselves as heroes. But more needs to be done. Much more needs to be done. And if I can ask that every one of you here use this rally, the energy and the positive work that comes from this rally, as a catalyst to do more. And by more, I mean it is time for all of us, despite our political differences, despite our denominations, all of those who support Israel, to hold those who would fund anti-Israel organizations accountable. And I'm sorry to say, some of this funding starts right here in Sweden. The Swedish government is responsible for funding an international secretariat that is housed in Birzeit. This secretariat is the heart of international anti-Israel campaigns that focus on boycotts of Israel and select Israelis for trials around the world. This is all done using Swedish and Danish money. Your taxes go to this activity. And it is time for those of us from Sweden and Denmark to ask our politicians, why is it that the Swedish and Danish government are very vocal about supporting a negotiated solution, yet the money that they spend goes to organizations which openly oppose the state of Israel? It is time for this money to stop. It is time that those responsible for funding anti-Israel campaigns against the will of the Swedish people are held accountable. Unfortunately, much of this funding goes beyond just the governments and to organizations that do great work around the world, like SIDA here in Sweden. Yet much of Sweden's money that goes to the Middle East, a portion of the money that should go to supporting those in Gaza and other places, goes to organizations that use the language of human rights and medical health, yet when they are faced with international stages, they use the words like Nazis to describe Israel. SIDA funds these same organizations, and it is time for us to ask why. Church organizations here in Sweden that really do great work, Diakonia, are responsible for funding the very same organizations in the Secretariat that lead boycott and divestment actions against Israel, are funded as well and in turn by Diakonia. Why is the church funding these anti-Israel organizations? Why does the church financially support the boycott of Israel? It is time to ask them to be held accountable for this funding. And in Norway, organizations that really do speak of great work for refugees, like the Norwegian Refugee Council, is responsible for a wide-ranging attempt to circumvent and abuse the Israeli court system in a clear and open disregard for democracy in any country. Why is so much money that goes to the Norwegian Refugee Council being diverted to political organizations that openly subvert the Israeli court system? This money needs to be made accountable. And finally, before the rain starts, anti-Semitism is a major problem. And we have seen all too often organizations funded by the Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian governments will use age-old anti-Semitism like blood libels and accusing Israelis of the horrible things that Jews were accused of many years ago. These same organizations now lobby the European Union to disassociate the kinds of blatant anti-Semitism that they show to Israel from classical anti-Semitism. And so we have an absurd situation where the European Union no longer regards vicious anti-Israel activities as anti-Semitism, and they do this because organizations funded by Scandinavian governments tell them that their vicious anti-Semitism is not anti-Semitism, it is just anti-Zionism. And this is done with your money. It is time for politicians, your politicians, to be held accountable. And I ask you all, while we have such great energy here today and before the rain starts, take the initiative and ask your representatives. It is time to empower yourselves. Ask them why this money is being used in your name. Thank you.